Froggy! Planet Crafter is a planet colonization survival sandbox simulator, where you go all the way from a Mars-like desert planet to a lush, life-filled world. This game also doesn't have an opening on account of it being early access probably, but I didn't want to wait to play it. So, yeah, let's just get into it. Our story begins with being plopped right onto the planet with a message telling us to colonize it. We're given some food, some oxygen capsules, and a single seed, as well as a crafting station. So we set off to gather resources in the form of silicone, iron, ice, magnesium, cobalt, and titanium. Now to begin terraforming the planet, we'll need to generate oxygen, heat, and pressure. I start by making a backpack to carry more stuff and a bigger oxygen tank so that I can breathe longer. I gather some more resources and make a construction ship, as well as come across a container with some predisposed stuff in it. With this, I move to higher ground and construct some stairs leading up to a small living capsule. I also make a deconstruction ship so I can fix things I mess up, like the stairs not being centered. Now as for sustainability, the food we were given should last a while, along with any we come across in containers. And the planet has plenty of water in the form of ice, so we don't have to worry about that. I go ahead and expand the living space to be a little bigger, as well as set down some desks for a nice little workspace. With it turning night, however, it would seem that it's a little dark in here, so we go ahead and make our first power generator in the form of a wind turbine. We then make some screens in the workspaces to keep track of the terraforming, as well as the power levels. I also make a blueprint screen which will unlock us blueprints as we reach new milestones. We make some more wind turbines to increase max power, but while the power is fine, all terraforming is at 0. So we go ahead and make our first drill to up the pressure gauge. It ain't much, but it's a start. We make a crafting station in here so we can officially move out of the pod we arrived in, as well as put together a vegetube for that seed we have. And now we are producing oxygen. It would also appear that there are some distant shipwrecks on this planet. However, with my quickly depleting oxygen tank, I have to get creative by bringing enough resources with me to create a small living space, hop in to refill my O2 tank, then continue. Now I can explore at my leisure. Inside, we discover a blueprint microchip, a new seed, as well as fabric. We also find a broken heater, which I deconstruct for parts. Heading back, we're able to construct a smaller version of the heater, and we now have production of everything. We're also able to use that microchip to unlock a new blueprint for increased mining speed. And if you've ever wondered what I'm doing during this gameplay, I'm usually just spouting nonsense like this. This is Diamond Sword to Major Steve. You're gonna want diamonds. So anyway, in that clip I made an exoskeleton which will let us equip more suit upgrades going forward, as well as I upgraded the oxygen tank to tier 2 and made a flashlight to go explore that wreck again. This time around I found 3 more microchips, but also some new items such as iridium, super alloy, some squash seeds, and some aluminum. So we go ahead and unlock some more blueprints and make ourselves some agility boots. I also make a nice window so we can see outside. We then unlock solar panels, so I go ahead and put one on the roof for a nice power bonus. I decided to do some exploring in the direction of that other wreck that's near us and discover a frozen over cave that tells me it'll melt later in the game. So I guess that'll be important later. Oh well, might as well pirate the wreck while I'm here. On my way back, a meteor shower seems to start, sending us yummy meteors filled with free resources. I upgrade the vegetube setup to tier 2, and while exploring I come across some uranium. I also go ahead and finally upgrade my backpack up to tier 3. With quite a steady production level on everything, we're unlocking new blueprints fast, so I decide to trek further past the shipwreck where I find steady supplies of rarer ores. I also put together an upstairs area in advance for later and upgraded the heater to tier 2. I then wanted to go over to the distant cave that was protruding Cheeto dust, and it would appear to merely be an iridium-filled cave. No Cheeto dust. I did gather some stuff for a progress screen though, which will show us our current and next stage of terraformation. Right now we are barren, and need to make the sky blue. I make some more drills to speed up production and also construct a second living space. We also unlock the beacon, so I go ahead and put one on the roof. Now we'll always have a marker pointing towards the base. This means we can travel much further away without getting lost. We go ahead and upgrade our drills to tier 2 and set off exploring in a new direction. All I really found was a new wreck, but it did give me a nice corner window for my upstairs, which I put a nice new tier 2 solar panel on top of. I also moved the heater to the upstairs along with a new second one. And with nothing to do again, I pick a direction and set off. I come across another new shipwreck, this one much bigger, and in here I discover bioplastic nuggets, rocket engines, iridium rods, and a giant fusion reactor that I can't use, along with things requiring a tier 2 deconstruction ship. So I'll definitely be coming back here later, I assume. Anyway, coming back to base, I place a giant antenna on the roof of that second living space, turning it into a communication hub. This will allow me to receive messages, whatever good that'll do. I put together a giant tier 3 drill to replace the 2 tier 2s we got, and also finally unlock the ability to grow food. So I take that squash seed we found and plant it. We're also now a quarter of the way to the blue sky, and we unlocked lockers, which is a much bigger storage option. I decide to venture through that chasm that's near the base, and here we discover our very first golden chest, carrying some nice stuff including a golden seed. Venturing even further down, we uncover a uranium-filled cave that most likely gave me severe radiation poisoning. And I'll be honest, I think I went a little too far out this time around, and while trying to get back, I got stuck inside a wall and ended up on the opposite side of one of those ice walls. But here I did end up finding some new ores, such as osmium and sulfur. I also found something called pulsar quartz in this weird dark area. I did eventually make it back, where I found our very first space-grown squash. I replaced the vegetube plant with the golden seed and also started receiving messages from someone named Riley, who seemed to actually offer some useful info. I also noticed while being more than halfway to blue sky that the sky is noticeably different. I made a blueprint for a recycling machine that I got that'll let me fix any accidental crafts that I do, like this extra backpack, and get my materials back. I also decided to make another big building, as this main area is starting to get a little full. We take some of that yummy uranium we found to put together a nuclear reactor, and it turns out that the tier 3 vegetube can't go inside, so I make some foundations outside and put it right by the reactor for optimal genetic mutation. I watch as our percentage to blue sky finishes, showing us our next stage being clouds. This also gives us an advanced crafting station, which will apparently let us make a jetpack. I of course rushed to make this right away, and now I can glide around everywhere. We upgrade our heaters to a nice fat tier 3 one and go to explore the canyon regions of the map, and when I return it would seem we're already very close to the next terraformation stage. I forgot to record putting down the grass spreader, but here it is, and it's actually growing some grass. We also immediately went past the cloud stage after doing this and are now trying to make it rain. I also apparently forgot to record when I made this gigantic rocket launching platform. But whatever, I made it, and now we can work on launching satellites into orbit to give us an increase in certain productions, as well as provide us with mapping information. We then unlock the biodome, which we build right away, and apparently there's an entire second menu for producing biomass on the planet through plants, insects, and animals. Now we gotta do this stuff on top of the terraforming menu. I also decoded a chip and got a display box. I build another reactor for power, and while exploring come across an underground base that belonged to a dead guy filled with tons of stuff, so I guess keep an eye out for random ladders in the ground from now on. I also came across this new area that I dubbed the Cheeto Dust Plains, which seems to be a good source of sulfur. Here we also have the mystical Cheeto Dust Wall, which appears to be a good source of superalloy. I then came across a cave, and inside was a giant stone door with no handle. So I'ma just ignore that obvious sign of alien life and move on. I make my way back and construct a water collector so we'll have automated water once it starts raining. And while checking on some stuff, I see that it's already raining outside, and well enough, yep, we've moved on to the liquid water stage. I go ahead and set up another food grower, this time with some beans. And while gathering stuff, we unlock the ore extractor, which is a pricey build, but I go ahead and make it anyways, cause, you know, automated mining. I also find this nice little spot for an overview of the entire starting area. Looks gross. I decode another chip and get the deconstruction tier 2 module I was looking for, which needs a methane cartridge. However I get that. Oh yeah, the zeolite. I'll be honest, I don't know how or when, but apparently I already have some of that. Don't know where I got it. I set off to the dark area to gather more osmium, but while there come across a giant Cheeto Dust crater. I obviously hop right into it where everything turns red around me, but I do find another underground base and head towards the middle where I find the meteor that made the crater. And hey, free iridium rod. We do some exploring around the crater area, coming across more small wrecks and even some more golden chests, which means more useless funny trophies. Oh, and terraforming check, we're past the halfway to water, but this place still looking dry as a dry bones. I completely forgot that I unlocked the biolab a while ago, so I go ahead and move all the nuclear reactors to the roof so I can attach the lab to the side. It's looking like here we can make some weird stuff like explosive powder, mutagen, those nuggets I found, and fertilizer. I basically just sat around for a while and we finally passed the water stage, moving on to lakes. I make the assumption that that means those ice walls have melted by now, and I was partly right as the cave entrances have opened up, giving us more osmium and sulfur to mine. I use all these new resources to finally construct and launch a GPS rocket up to orbit around the planet, and now we finally have a map. I also figure I might as well use all the golden seeds I find instead of just having them sit in a locker, so I build another vegetube. In the distance, I see some funny stuff on the ground, and turns out that the lakes are actually starting to come in. I went ahead and set up a mushroom farm, as well as went back to explore the meteor crater where I came across a new cave that led right to the Cheeto Wall. so now I have a nice roundabout shortcut back home. I'm also a little concerned for the home, as we're at about 7% to lakes, and that water is getting awfully close to the base. Whatever. Instead of moving, I went ahead and made an onslaught of more drills to speed up pressure production, and explored even further up north where I came across a giant ring-shaped ship. But it mostly just turned into another place with a fusion reactor that I can't use yet. I did climb up it and nearly died coming down though, looking for a secret on top. I made another grass spreader because I'm tired of this place looking like a desert, and I also started launching some more satellites into orbit on a regular basis. We go ahead and replace our nuclear reactors for some much nicer and fatter tier 2 ones, as well as we can now start producing plant life in the form of algae. I put the generator in our newly formed lake, and after a few seconds it do start producing some greenage. We head on over to the Cheeto Dust Cave and start automating iridium production, and while sitting around doing nothing again, we unlock the flower spreader. So I go ahead and build that and move one of our golden seeds over to it. It would also appear that the algae has finished growing to the point I can yoink it, so now we have algae. And while putting it in the biolab building, I also went ahead and built an eggplant farm, since I imagined fertilizer will be an important resource later. It doesn't seem like we need it for the flower spreader though, which started working, and now we have some nice golden flowers on our lawn producing oxygen. And with the flower spreaders being a better option than the vegetubes, I make some more to move our golden seeds into to maximize our oxygen output. We then unlock the lake water collector, which tells me we're on to the next stage, moss. And with lakes being done, besides one slightly submerged drill, the base didn't end up being flooded, which is nice. I set up the water collector and then set my eyes on the tier 2 biodome, which I managed to scrounge together enough materials to make. This one's got trees in it, which will automatically start producing free, yummy tree bark. All I can really use this for right now is to make a plant rocket, which spreads also very yummy plant spores all across the planet. It then came time to discontinue my several giant tier 3 drills in favor of one gigantic claw-shaped tier 4 one. But this thing's still going too slow, so I run away to grab more stuff to make another one. There we go. With the moss stage also coming to an end, some areas are noticeably greener than before, and our next stage would appear to be Flora. So I'm given a screen that'll let us keep track of the biomass the same as the terraforming. And thanks to that extra drill, I unlock the gas extractor. Remember those methane cartridges I need? Well, this will provide them. I also spent some time looking for a spot for the new heater that can't go inside. I think right here will do. With now having methane cartridges with the gas extractor, I go ahead and make the tier 2 deconstruction module and start heading over to the big shipwreck. I found those servers I couldn't mess with before, and it looks like destroying them gives me circuit boards. So I grab a bunch and head on my way. I don't know what I can do with these, but now I got a bunch, I guess. I do some more exploring near the crater, where it looks like an area that I visited before has turned into a giant waterfall. I venture behind the waterfall, where I find yet another shipwreck with a fusion generator I can't use yet. What are these things for? Anyway, I did unlock an orbital info screen that'll finally let us have a display showing all current satellites in orbit, as well as get a nice full space view of the planet. While just running around nearby, I came across some zeolite that appeared to have surfaced naturally along with what looks like a tree root. And I'm pretty sure I'm right, as we already passed to our next stage, trees, as we're also awarded the DNA manipulator. It would seem, even though just starting this stage, that I would come across a giant slew of roots in the Cheeto Cave. And when climbing up these roots, it reaches a secret area containing yucky looking plants, zeolite, and a nice overview of the entire starting area. Moving on, we go ahead and make that DNA manipulator we got and take a look at it. 3 items and a research button. After messing with it for a while, I realize I have no idea how to use this thing. But hey, look, super alloy rod. So I ditch this for later and make our first super alloy rod. Look at that thing. With this, I figure we can go ahead and start making some of those new rockets, starting with the maxed out GPS one, which I launched, granting us a now fully zoomed out map of the surrounding area. While sorting through some storage stuff, I get a message from Riley telling me that there's something off about the planet at these coordinates. The coordinates lead me to the dark area, where I find an entrance to some caves with mushroom trees that also appears to have structures, perhaps made by an intelligent life of some sort. The structures lead up to something called a Wardens Altar, which appears to have its own set of coordinates along with a Warden's key. I take it and head on over to the nearby coordinates, where I find another altar where the key can be placed, opening up a nearby door. Inside is a long corridor leading to a room of pillars where I find tablets written by the Wardens, in English for some reason, about how they have to leave the planet. This is now undeniable proof of a pre-existing civilization. If it wasn't proof enough, I enter this room to come across a giant spaceship. But with it still here, the question remains on if the Wardens ever really left the planet at all. Back in the building, though, I find yet another Warden's key along with another set of coordinates. It would appear we are now on a treasure hunt. So I leave the building and mushroom cave back to the surface, ready to begin our new journey. I make sure I'm all set on materials and set off. I go towards the coordinates sending me far west, where it turns out to be the location of the cave with the big door I found, where an altar has now mysteriously appeared, allowing me to open the door. As we walk down a plethora of stairs to another hallway, we come to yet another Warden's key, this time with no coordinates though. Moving further through the facility, we come to discover an ancient city with another coordinateless key in the center. Exploring the buildings, we come across more tablets containing info on the Wardens and their attempts to sway humans from their planet, as well as a third and final key, this one with more coordinates. And so we leave the city with now 3 Warden's keys in hand. I then decide to set course directly to the next location. After passing through a swamp-like terrain, we come to a dead end at a mountain. Looking around, I find the altar and it demands all 3 of our keys as the mountain begins moving. We move inwards through the path, and as we make our way through a river, we come face to face with the ancient paradise. Exploring this paradise, we come across even more Warden keys, 5 of them to be exact. And next to a very blunt tablet, we put them all into another altar to have another mysterious door open. Very slowly. But finally getting in and making our way through, we come to a giant room containing actual life in the form of golden butterflies. As well as on a final tablet, we find out the fate of the Wardens. But with all these butterflies here, we acquire some larvae, and with nothing more I can do, I leave the paradise with our newly acquired golden larva. Back to the actual game, I guess. So, back to it. We put the golden larvae away as we don't actually have the means of using them yet, as we also go ahead and make some more flower spreaders to get rid of the rest of the vegetubes. I also went ahead and made a map info rocket. This will display where we can mine for specific resources on the map. We're also past the halfway point on trees now, as we then have our very first super alloy meteor shower happen. Very useful actually, I was running low. I messed with the DNA manipulator some more trying to figure it out, to no avail, and it would actually turn out that this menu screen up here that I currently have no clue about actually tells you the crafting recipes. Big dumb, but yet somehow through sheer trial, error, and boredom, I actually find a recipe that works. And after waiting a while and coming back, I find it made a tree seed. That I can't use yet. Something I can use now, however, is the DNA manipulator to make better tree seeds in advance out of my golden flower seeds. And perfect timing too, as after making this, we unlock the tree spreader. So we go ahead and make one of these behind the launching platform and put our golden seed equivalent tree seed in it. And now we play the waiting game. And it doesn't take too long, as after it starts raining, I go to check on it and find some tiny little trees. And heading back inside, it would seem we actually moved past the tree stage onto insects. Because of this, we unlock the beehive as well as the fusion generator, which I actually already have the materials to build, so I put it in here to give us some nice excess power production. This will let us start covering the area with tree spreaders. I also made a nice display case for all my trophies. After waiting around for a bit, we finally unlock the butterfly dome. We go ahead and put it on the end of the biolab and rush inside to put our golden larva inside it, spawning our very own golden butterflies, and starting off our insect production at a pretty fast rate. While running around the base, I also came across our very first naturally occurring larva. So I spent a bunch of time just exploring around waiting to unlock the incubator, and after we finally get it, this will let us start working towards things like bee larvae, letting us make our very own beehive that'll produce honey. From here, we also go ahead and turn some larvas into silkworm to start farming silk. We also unlocked a water filter that'll let us drink directly from any water source, so no more scrounging for water, which is nice. We go back to exploring near the crater again, where I come across a giant block of ice that hasn't melted yet, blocking a large cave entrance. So it would seem that there are still areas to explore, and hey! Where'd the meteor go? I just saw it 2 seconds ago when I came into the area! Anyway, as I come home, it seems we've passed the insect stage and moved on to a breathable atmosphere. So worrying about O2 will soon be a thing of the past. We also unlock the tier 2 tree spreader, which doesn't have to go in water like the last one, and we also come across our first rare larva, which unfortunately I don't think the game accounted for us finding the golden ones this early on. Oops. It would also seem that I completely forgot that we unlocked the space trading rocket a while ago. So we build it, and it would seem here we can sell items for tokens that allow us to buy new blueprints. Unfortunately, some of these blueprints cost over 10,000 tokens, and so-called valuable items sell for a measly 6 to 13 each. So yeah, that's a scam. It would seem, however, that the breathable atmosphere is coming along, as when I viewed it, my O2 consumption was above 1 per second, and now it's moved to below 1. I did manage to scrounge enough Terra tokens to buy some wheat seeds, so I go ahead and make our first outdoor farm and put them in there, and hopefully wheat is useful for something in the future. We then unlock the teleporter blueprint, so I go and build what will be our main one in the biolab area for later. And as I head back, it would seem we've moved on to the next stage. Fish. So I go ahead and make another teleporter, allowing us to now go to and from this cave area freely, which makes for much faster trekking to that blocked cave area where it would seem that the ice is now melted, allowing us to enter. So I make my way through the new cave, coming to a deep underwater area with its own submerged building and even some more ancient warden constructions, including a staircase leading to another tablet confirming that even if any wardens did survive the meteor crash, it's unlikely they lived long. So we swim our way back, and after all this time, we finally unlock the fusion energy cells. Remember those goddamn fusion generators? Well, I think that's what these are for. So we make our first one and head on over to the big shipwreck. Heading inside and finding the generator, the cell works, turning all the ship's power back on, opening up a plethora of new areas on the ship with free yummy resources to take. I also on my way back saw this, and apparently a pulsar quartz meteor hit the planet. Not complaining, of course, I'll take the free stuff. It actually helped me in making 3 more fusion cells so I can head back to that ship behind the waterfall with that generator that wanted 3 cells all to itself. And unfortunately, not much excitement here either, mainly just more free stuff to yoink. While collecting some osmium meteors, we unlock the drone station. I make a small foundation area for it, and here we'll be able to start automation processes. My main one wanting to be some type of automatic selling for the trade rocket somehow, so I set up a temporary setup of beans and honey that an auto-crafter will make into quality food for the drones to then put into the trade rocket to sell. Slightly overcomplicated system, but it should work for now. We also then unlock the butterfly farm that'll let us bring our dome of golden butterflies to free range outside. I then just scrounged together whatever I could in the DNA manipulator to fill the empty slots in the dome again. And I got some nice purple ones. I also went back to explore the ancient paradise again. And yeah, I didn't miss anything. I think the whole mystery stuff of the game is unfortunately over. I go ahead and set up a drill and teleporter at a super alloy mine so we can have a constant supply of that, as well as when I arrive back, I don't see, but I do hear a meteor land. And checking it out, it would appear to be a supply drop full of resources and even free Terra tokens. So don't know who sent this, but I'll take it, and I guess that's a thing that can happen now. So I wait for the trade rocket to come back, and now with these free tokens, I can go shopping. So I get us a cooking station and a recipe for smart fabric, whatever that is. I put the cooking station in the lab area, and it seems like this thing is just for making genuine food, so don't know if I just wasted my tokens. But I head back and do manage to catch us finishing the fish tier. Froggy! It also gives us an aquarium, which is quite a sizable build, so I go ahead and construct us a new tiny building right on the lake coast. And the aquarium fits in here fine, but to get fish eggs we need to wait to unlock the water life collector. So back to making more trees. I also went ahead and made another base in that cave area we have a teleporter at to have a place just for power generation, and made 2 more outdoor farms. And after quite a while of just sitting around doing literally nothing, we finally get the water life collector. So we put it in the lake and leave it to do its thing, and later after checking it, it would appear we now have phytoplankton. This allows us to make our first fish eggs in the incubator, which when put into the aquarium gives us our first 2 fish in the form of this little purple guy and this little red guy. I also made a second aquarium for any future fish we unlock or find. With us now passively producing animals, I go ahead and check in on our automated drones at the rocket, and hey, look at all that food to sell. We then unlock the final tier of the heater, and it's an expensive build that made this super alloy teleporter and drill very worthwhile. This thing is also humongous, so I move it on over to sit by itself in the outskirts. From here we go over to the waterfall and set up a shack with a teleporter and make another water life collector here where we can supposedly get some good fish eggs. Yeah, I used the wiki. How else am I supposed to figure out this is where you get them? So I hang out near the waterfall for a while, where for some reason the sky turned into a pink diamond for a bit, and come back to see exactly the eggs I'm looking for. So I put them in the aquarium, giving us a green fish. And with the sheer amount of storage I have going right now, I decide to make a new storage area where we can tell the drones to bring specific resources to each container, while telling them to take it from the drill's inventories. So I run around all my drills and set up the supply menus, and after a while we got a pretty good setup going. Oh yeah, I forgot we can see the drones and what they're up to on the map screen now. Look at them go. Our next unlock is the Tier 2 gas extractor. So we get rid of the old one and put this one by the storage area, and it would seem that this one lets us specify what we'd like it to extract. So I set up 2 so we can automate both methane and nitrogen production, because I don't see why we would need oxygen capsules. I went ahead and made another outdoor farm, this time for mushrooms, as well as a drill at our cave base to automate zeolite production with the drones. My goal here is to try and start auto-selling items worth more than the quality food. I was thinking like circuit boards or pulsar quartz or something, so I head over to the cave closest to us to set up another drill to mine for some osmium. And with this setup, we can now change the autocrafter and set it to make pulsar quartz instead, and then set the drones to deliver those quartz to the trade rocket. So while we leave all that to run, I go ahead and begin drilling for sulfur in the Cheeto Dust Plains, as well as build our first insect spreader rocket, which like the other rockets will orbit around the planet, giving us a nice... It's fine, let's just launch the rocket, send it up, and they stayed behind. Well, in other news, we are 79% of the way to Froggy. Still haven't seen any frogs around, though. Alright, I bet this was a fluke. Let me try it again and see if they... Yep, look at them go. I decided to try organizing some of my lockers and ended up seeing just how many microchips I've come across that don't do anything yet. And yeah, maybe I should have waited for the full game to come out. This video's already too long, almost done. With us almost finished the Froggy stage, we unlocked the final tier of drill. So goodbye to these drills, but this thing is a little big. So I put it in the outskirts, and yeah, that thing is chungus. And so I sit around for a while, and boom. We unlock the Amphibian farm, mutagen tier 4, probably to make frog eggs, and the next stage, Mammals, which I'm pretty sure isn't in the game yet. So I make the amphibian farm, but we don't exactly have any amphibians. So with the help of Google.com, I find some recipes for some frog eggs and put them in the DNA manipulator, where they don't work. So back to exploring for a bit where this happened. Froggy! And the frogs don't seem to mind if I yoink their eggs, so I thank them, thanks for your eggs, and head back. I do decide to take a little detour though, where I head over to one of the hidden warden areas where I discover the fabled golden frogs. So give me those eggs and I'm on my way back for real now. So we put the frogs in the farm and there we go. Jesus, you guys are weird looking. I also got some funky looking purple ones too. However, I think this is where we must come to an abrupt end. With our next terraformation stage not being in the game yet, and our final unlocks not meaning much at the moment, I think this is where we get off. We went from a barren wasteland with quite literally nothing on it, to a lush, life-filled planet filled with frogs, butterflies, and plenty of plant life. I really liked this game, and I think I will come back to it in a few years well after it's been completed. But for now, with all we've built in our short time here, there's only one thing left to do, as I make a final rocket and jump onto it. I'm going to space! No, it kicks me off! Aw, disappointment!